Back to the daily grind, and y'all know we gotta talk about this. But before we do, make sure you hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
As a self-proclaimed comedian that covers mixed martial arts on YouTube, I'm gonna leave the jokes aside, including the sound buttons for this video, because this is a little bit of a touchy subject. Now, what's going on for this video? Some of you guys might know this guy's name, some of you might not. Honestly, I didn't know anything about Mr. Nick Newell until Justin Gaethje got that crazy win over Michael Johnson, made his UFC debut in that Fight of the Year contender. Everybody started running to do their research on Justin Gaethje, and when you run into a Justin Gaethje highlight reel, you might run into Nick Newell. And you know what I'm saying? That's exactly how I ran into Nick Newell, because I was watching the Justin Gaethje highlight reel, and I did a double take, like, did he just knock out a nigga with one arm? And so you hit rewind and you fucking do the same triple take, and you're like, did he just knock out a nigga with one arm? And then so you watch it 3 or 4 more good times, and you ask yourself that about 5 or 6 more times, and you realize, yeah, that's what happened. And so yeah, Nick Newell was that guy. Nick Newell, though, even though you saw him in the Justin Gaethje highlight reel, that was his only loss. You know what I'm saying? So at first I was like, who the fuck is Justin Gaethje been over there fighting in that league? And then come to find out, oh, okay, so that one-armed guy only has one loss. His name is Nick Newell, and like I said, he fought Justin Gaethje, but other than that, he's on a 3-fight winning streak now. Most recently, he got a win at LFA 35 after taking a couple of years off, and he came back and got a win over Sonny Luque. And after that win at LFA 35, Nick Newell called for his UFC opportunity. He said, I'm one of the best fighters in the world, and I belong here, or not here, and I belong in the UFC. That's it. That's final. I gave you 14 reasons why I belong in the UFC. I'm one of the best fighters in the world, and I proved it 14 times. And that's just, as wishful and hopeful as Nick Newell may be, I just don't ever see that being, happening. Even with that reasoning, I mean, there's a lot of guys that have 14 wins that aren't in the UFC. There's some guys that, might just be fighting in Bellator. There's some guys like Gegard Mousasi who 100% should be in the UFC, and they're not even in the UFC. So it's not about just the best fighters in the world fighting in the UFC. And even if that was the case, I don't know if Nick Newell is one of the best fighters in the world. Now, his record looks good, 14-1, but I mean, whenever you look, I clicked on Sonny Luque because this is the win that he called out, he wants to be in the UFC. And Sonny Luque going into the fight was 8-6. So, there's not very many Sonny Luques in the UFC. And I just feel like as soon as Nick Newell lost in the UFC, if that ever happened, you know what I'm saying? Even he could pick up 5 wins in a row and then fight a top 15 guy. The minute Nick Newell loses, that's it when it becomes a bad business decision. The minute, the UFC signs Nick Newell and he starts gaining some traction, and then if he ever, so happened to lose in the UFC via knockout like he did versus Justin Gaethje, I just think that would make headlines. Like, what is the UFC doing? And the UFC has been groundbreaking with WMMA. You see female fighters headlining cards, headlining pay-per-views, but I don't think they're going to be this groundbreaking, you know what I'm saying? Because this just seems like a whole different ballpark to me, what I'm saying? So with that being said, not really too much else to say here except for Nick Newell just got another W. He moved to 14-1, so congratulations on that win. But on the microphone after the fight, he said he wants to be in the UFC, and I just don't know how that happens. I mean, he's in the LFA, which is the UFC's feeder organization. A lot of people from the LFA go to the UFC, but I mean, once you look into it, the only person that Nick Newell has ever fought that actually made it to the UFC was Justin Gaethje, and that's the guy that beat him. So, you can't really even give the argument like, look, he's beat this guy that was in the UFC. So I just don't think a lot of the mixed martial arts fans would see, this Nick Newell as beating someone in the UFC. I mean, you're going to have to put him against, the unranked guys, because I just really feel like the best fighters. I mean, could you imagine if there was a guy with like one arm trying to play basketball? You know what I'm saying? It's essentially the same thing. Like, yeah, you can probably hit a couple of shots when you're open, or, if you're you know, a one-armed NBA player could probably still beat me in basketball. Nick Newell could probably still beat up a lot of guys, you know, that aren't that good at fighting. But when you're talking about the best in the world, you're not going to be able to do it. And I just feel like even if you do beat a couple unranked fighters, he fights at 155 pounds. And I hate to do this to the fucking GOAT, but let's say Artem Lobov wanted to go up for a super fight at 155 pounds. Well, after Artem Lobov, even if Nick Newell was able to somehow topple the GOAT Artem Lobov, then who's next? You know, how long until you gotta fight number 15th ranked somebody? Or what if Nick Newell had to fight Mairbek fucking Taisumov, you know? Like, that just doesn't seem like something that the UFC would want to put on their screen. You know, Mairbek Taisumov, unranked fighter, 5-fight knockout streak, 5-fight win streak, 5 knockouts in a row. But Nick Newell, you're in the division, and this is just another unranked guy in your division. So there's just a lot of guys in the UFC that are not the same as these Sonny Luques and stuff. Even Justin Gaethje's having a hard time now in the UFC. He had a really good win in his UFC debut, but since then he just lost to Eddie Alvarez, and he's scheduled to fight Dustin Poirier up and coming. So we'll see how Justin Gaethje pans out in the UFC. But as of right now, that's the only guy that Nick Newell has faced and that has made it to the UFC, so you can say is UFC material. And Justin Gaethje right now, you know what I'm saying? And Nick Newell even lost to him. So I don't know what that means. Take it or leave it. With that being said, Nick Newell won at LFA 35 and called for his UFC opportunity. There's my take on it. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
Da 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 da. It's the motherfucking DOG.